probably the best lead is an inbound call that turns into a warm transfer. So there's an inbound call that comes to an agent like us. We're able to further qualify them, make sure they're in the right zip code, make sure they're the homeowner, make sure the house had X, Y, and Z, repairs needed or whatever. And then from there, we either warm transfer or set the appointment. So it was an inbound lead, but now we are able to take it much further. And now again, it's on a platter for the end sales guy, sales gal to come in and finalize it. And that's win-win-win. It's someone who has intent, they get qualified further, and now the last guy is able to finish the job nice and easy. But for us, we're looking for someone that we can scale with. So you've started something, you're really good at what you're doing, but you don't want to be a call center company. Let us do the call center portion. You stick with what you're great at, whether that's roofing or whatever, home service or insurance. We take over the call center portion. Again, that feedback loop is consistent. We're able to see reporting. We're able to make sure you're successful, we're successful, and now let's grow. That my CEO was touched on a little bit in the panel is that there's always the new hot vertical out there that can be good and bad. Everyone rushes to, let's say, Medicare, and then, like he had mentioned, pivoted to ACA, when CMS crackdowns came and it was just getting more and more saturated, so it was easier to go to something else. And we might grow, with our clients who are doing that pivot and are taking advantage of that. But then when that fizzles out and the next thing comes, it's not exactly easy to just be like, hey, let's take these 100 agents and move them from this vertical to that vertical.
Are you stuck in that $3 to $10 million year-over-year revenue? Roofs in a Box is your all-in-one growth partner for modern construction companies. They combine AI, virtual staffing, and CRM solutions to help streamline operations. Replace your high fixed overhead with cost-effective systems and support. They empower you to run a smarter, leaner business, freeing up capital where it matters most. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next Roofs in a Box purchase. This episode of Pain Points is brought to you by Ringba. If your business relies on phone calls, you need to be working with them. Their technology will help you get the most money out of your marketing campaigns. Their call exchange, Ringba X, can deliver inbounds on demand to help grow your customer base. Now, I want to be transparent. Ringba and Adam did pay me to deliver that message, but I'm also a customer, and I've watched them help dozens of companies become more successful over the years. So if you sell a product or service over the phone, I guarantee a moment with their team will be worth it. All right, man. Welcome to another episode of Pain Points, where real pain equals real growth. Today, we are privileged to have Travis Currier from the Call Gurus here to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I guess we just shoot right into it, man. You guys have made a lot of noise in this industry. You guys have grown quickly, do business correctly. Let's just start off with some of the pain points, like of just talking about why people use call center services, what separates you from other BPO services. Why don't we just start there?
Yeah, for sure. Especially in home services, roofing, solar space. We've talked to a lot of people who have done door knocking for a long time. And, it gets old to some extent, and it's tough. It's hard. It's a lot of long Saturdays of 12, 14-hour days. And they're kind of like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. Let's call the people. Let's set up true appointments so they're happy to see us. And, we're talking to the people that we actually want to talk to, who actually need our help. And so then, they're able to get call lists and, come up with some intent through different marketing people, like that are here at ASC. And then from there, we're calling people to, make sure we're calling the right people, and then turn those into appointments or warm transfers or whatever it may be, to then make sure that these end buyers are talking to the right people and able to, help them out with what they're actually looking for.
You brought up a good point, and I know you guys do a lot with a lot of different companies, not just home improvement and whatnot, but you talk about door knockers, and I think a lot of business owners like myself, we do door knocking.
Right.
But talking about collapsing timeframes, can you kind of talk about maybe some of the numbers you see of calling potential clients, kind of the cost per acquisition, and kind of just being able to hit a larger audience much quicker than going one door at a time? Yeah,
for sure. And we've worked with a bunch of different types of companies. Some of them are, kind of going after storms. When a storm comes in and it crushes, certain towns, cities, and big area codes, they go they go crazy and they want to help those people, because the nice thing is insurance will come in and, help pay for a lot of the repairs and all that, or even a full redo of a roof. And our thing is like, hey, let's call through them all and make sure we get them to a point where we can help them and we can, introduce you to the right people. And then from there, we can kind of call through the entire city, to some extent, and, make sure that we want to know the metrics too, the metrics that our clients are looking for. So what is the CPA you're after? What is, a certain amount of appointments that you can set per day? What, how many people do you have in the field? Is X amount too many? Is X amount too little? And then from there, we want feedback as much as possible too. Once we do have set appointments, we want to hear how many of them sat, how many of them did the full demo, and then from there, how many of them sold. And then we want to establish KPIs too. And a lot of times when we work with newer clients, they might not have the KPI from day one, but we want to help them establish that, where it's like, hey, after week one or after month one, let's dive into the numbers. Let's make sure we have the right technology for sure, so that there is reporting, so that we can dive in and say, we set 100 appointments. How many of them sat? Okay, it was 72. How many of those 72 sold? It was X. And how much, to some extent, how much money did you make? How much money are you paying us? And, make sure there's margins there. 100%. Because if we're not transparent with those, and if our clients aren't transparent with us, we could be turned off at any time, or, they could pivot to something else at any time. So we want to make sure our clients are growing and that we can grow with them.
You brought up some pretty interesting points, and even some of the mid-size, type of construction companies that I work with, and I mentor even my own. The difference is I come from lead gen. So you brought up a lot of loaded terminology. When you meet with contractors or these mid-sized companies, do they even know those numbers? Like how many appointments they can take, their scope of work, how many reps they have, what their appetite is? Do they understand ad ratio or CAC or CPA? Do they, right. Or do you have to really sit down and educate them?
A lot of times it's the latter, where, they might have some estimates, like we think we can do this, we think we can do that. And then sometimes they're super dialed in. Every once in a while we're chatting with somebody who's super dialed in. They've probably already done this in the past, and maybe it didn't work for X, Y, or Z. We're going to come in and say we're different, because we've done this before, because we know what KPIs make sense, and we just need to learn as much about you as possible to help make sure those KPIs are hit. But also there's definitely quite a few that they're like, hey, all I know is that there's money to be made, which again is not the end of the world. Like, yes, there is money to be made, but now let's make sure it's a process. Let's make sure we follow the process, and we have a continuous feedback loop. Feedback loop is huge.
You actually just helped me think about this. I think of you guys as a brand in our industry, at least the lead gen space. But you guys just brought up something else, is that because you do have so much experience across multiple verticals, you can actually educate the client that doesn't know those numbers, that doesn't understand set rate or demo rate or cost of acquisition, or that feedback loop to help you dial in and do the campaign. You're actually telling them in a lot of cases what they need to expect,
right,
to help educate them as far as following the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing we get, one of the last, questions usually for us before we onboard is what can I expect? Like, what are you guys going to do? Because I know you guys have done this before. And the hard part is everyone's different. And maybe someone's in California versus someone who's in New Jersey, and it's totally different. Someone runs a different type of ad that's a little bit higher intent than someone else. How many states are you dialing in? How many people do you have on the ground? How many boots on the ground? How many appointments can you take per day? So there's no perfect cookie cutter way to do it, or perfect, cookie cutter KPIs even, because everyone's a little different. And so from there, it's like, hey, let's just have that feedback loop where you guys, we're all looking at the same reporting. We want to make sure we all have access to see the reporting. Obviously, some of that comes with what technologies are we using, what dialer, what routing system, what tracking system. And from there, let's all make sure we have the same access. We're all looking at the same numbers, because sometimes that's part of it, is the tech piece, where we're looking at something, but they're using, maybe spreadsheets, a Google Doc. And unfortunately, we run into some of that before, where it's like, that's okay. We can still make sure we're talking about the same numbers here, but let's make sure we're also using the right technology. And from there, using the numbers to say, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, here's what we need to focus on. And sometimes that's on us. And it's like the agents need to focus on quantity over quality, or vice versa, quality over quantity. And sometimes it's like, hey, if we're giving you too many appointments, let's add a qualifier into the script so that we're only giving you the right amount of appointments, but they're higher quality. And then sometimes it's like, hey, actually, we need a little bit more. Let's maybe even take away a part, because we'll let the guy on the ground do the selling. Let's just make sure he's in the door. And so we definitely have that conversation all the time of, how much do you want us to sell over the phone versus how much do you want us to just say, hey, here's the doors open, go in there and go sell them on whatever you're doing.
And you brought up a different point because you guys are unique. You cater to the individual needs. You can do transfers, you can actually take payments, you can do a lot of different things, right? You can recommend dialers, you can be in their CRM, you cannot, you can. What do you feel works best for small business or mid-sized business? Because I feel like even though this is a $1 trillion industry, especially with insurance and roofing and construction, it still ran a lot of blue collar type mentality.
For
right?
sure.
So it's a little bit primitive. It's not as consolidated as a lot of other industries where they own the entire flow. Right. It's like the panel we just came from. They're not enterprise.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what do you feel? And I know this is a loaded question. Do you feel like it's better, since you guys are the experts, to actually just book the appointment where you got the consumer? Do you feel that they need to transfer it in internally to let someone more qualified answer the question? Or do you feel like the more you guys handle, it's a better user experience because you guys can kind of cultivate that experience for the
Yeah, we would definitely say, as far as we can take it is the better. We want it to be the lead is given into the dialer. We're calling it. We're getting as much information as possible, and then basically putting it on a platter for someone to go inside and sell it. And so as few, extra points in that system as possible. And I was just talking to somebody he was in the crowd after my CEO, Travis Currier, spoke, and he was in roofing. And he's like, hey, I have a few agents. We're here in Jersey, and we, what should we do next? And I was like, well, what are you doing? He said, warm transfers. And I was like, usually warm transfers are a good starting point, but appointment sets are usually even more profitable. Like, they want an appointment. They don't want to be able to have to, make the appointment after you already warmed them up. Like, skip that step, get to the appointment set. You can probably make more. They'll probably pay more. They'll be happier. And then again, going back to that feedback loop, talk to all your buyers and make sure you get what was the sit rate, what was the demo rate, what was the sale rate, and then from there, scale it up, work together on that.
This isn't necessarily a sexy topic, but I think a lot of people in the construction space needs to know this, right? I merged with a company recently, and they had no idea what compliance was.
Right.
Right. And so I don't want you to do a whole level on TCPA, but kind of also talk about what consumers need to kind of understand in a loose way, what TCPA is, what's consent, and more importantly, how expensive of a lesson is it? When people think that they're just texting people or not understanding that they have opt-in, what does that mean? What can that exposure mean for a small business?
For sure. And that's one thing we try to be super upfront at the very beginning. We're not going to work with everybody because some people don't care about compliance, and we definitely do. Our CEO is on the board of Reach, which is all about, making sure when you're outbound dialing and talking to consumers at any point, you're doing it responsibly, you're doing it compliantly, you're following rules that are set forth, both on state level and federal level. And from there, a lot of that is our knowledge that, especially our tech team has. And it makes sense that if a guy has a roofing company, wherever he is in the US, he's not worried about TCPA. Like, he's worried about getting the roofs, repaired or new installs. And that's his thing. And our thing is like, hey, we are a call center. We understand your portion a little bit, but that's your world. We just want to make sure you're doing our world as compliantly as possible. So we try to, share our knowledge as much up front as we can and say, every once in a while we get hit up and it's like, hey, I have 5 million records. And it's like, okay, are those records, do you have any right to call those people? And if you do, how, you can't just call them 10 times, right off the bat in the first day or two, like there's certain things, depending on which state you're in. And a lot of that has to go to the technology too. We want to use technology that already has that built in. They're never going to be able to call somebody.
Like power dial versus predictive dial.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
opt-in versus non-opt-in.
Exactly. We were just having that conversation recently with a client who basically was doing kind of like picking up. They had people in-house that were picking up and dialing, which is fine, but it's not very efficient. We were telling them, hey, there's a ton of technology, but they might not be able to predictive dial because they might not have enough records, or they might not have enough opt-ins, rather, that is like, hey, let's throw everything in a predictive dialer because of a few different things. So it's like there's certain options. Sometimes it's predictive dialing, sometimes it's power dialing, sometimes even click to dialing can be way better than just having people do it on their cell phones. So we want to learn, as much as we can about their leads, about how many people they have, about how much they can take, how many appointments and warm transfers and all that. And then from there, we kind of say, hey, we literally have our CTO give his suggestion. From everything you've said, this is what we would want you to use because of X, Y, and Z. We can make it customized and set up towards, with the settings that help you be as efficient as possible. but also as compliant as possible. And then from there, let's roll it out together.
Nice. I think what people don't really understand, and I'm not going to large upon, maybe I'll interview Troutman or do something similar to that to talk about TCPA. But if you don't have an opt-in, really, like if let's say you have 5,000 records, which isn't a lot, and you dial that one time and it's negligible, that's $1,500 per dial. That's $7.5 million, right? Sure. And that's on a small campaign.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand, for even a mid-sized business that's dialing a lot more than that can cripple the business.
Right.
Not understanding compliance and technology and TCPA, and like you just mentioned, many TCPA, like Texas and different regulations in each state by state.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So we talked about the storm chase, and what have you seen some of the best practices or lead types that maybe construction people or contractors aren't really exposed to? Because I feel like the rest of the world has kind of evolved to inbounds. And I'm not saying outbounds is horrible, but is there a certain type of lead that you feel that contractors need to specialize in, or do you think a diversified portfolio, or can you kind of walk me through lead types and where a lot of people are missing out on right now?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot there, and some of it depends on if it's a big brand. If it's a brand name that everyone knows, then they should have their own and operated site. That's where traffic should be driven to, so that someone fills out a form, they have the full consent to call, they have their information, and again, at the end of the day, that's someone you want to sell because they said, yes, I want to have more information about X. And so now that's the right person you're on the phone with or set an appointment with or whatever. And so inbounds are great, but not all inbounds are great. And not all inbounds are created equal. Like there's a lot of different crazy ads that are going to be misleading.
Like the free ones.
Exactly. Anytime it says free, it's probably not a good ad, but they're going to call and they're expecting, I saw this amazing ad that said I can get a free new roof because of something that's amazing in my zip code only. And they call, and then you're talking to somebody who's going to sell them a $20,000 roof. That's not going to be good. One thing we always say is probably the best lead is an inbound call that turns into a warm transfer. So there's an inbound call that comes to an agent like us. We're able to further qualify them, make sure they're in the right zip code, make sure they're the homeowner, make sure the house had X, Y, and Z, repairs needed or whatever. And then from there, we either warm transfer or set the appointment. So it was an inbound lead, but now we are able to take it much further. And now again, it's on a platter for the end sales gal to come in and finalize it. And that's win-win-win. It's someone who has intent. They get qualified further, and now the last guy is able to finish the job nice and easy.
And you brought up a lot of things that I think some small businesses or even mid-sized businesses don't really understand, is that like when you have an inbound call, if you don't have cadences to answer and vetting, you don't want your secretary, when they're getting warranty calls and everyone else getting like hundreds of calls coming in each day. You need somebody to kind of vet it, and then more importantly, if they are going to take the call, it's vetted by a professional to kind of help with the mundane,
for sure,
right? And then kind of weeding those out to get the qualified appointments from it.
Right.
Do they meet the criteria? Are they the homeowner? Are they the parents? Are they kids of elderly parents? Are they renters? You're pretty much vetting all these the tasks that you don't want to sit down and vet, especially like inundating your office line.
Yeah, and internally we even kind of consider that still a sales agent. Like even though it's mostly information gathering for the salesperson to come in person, we also are encouraging them to rebuttal certain things. Like, I know I probably can't afford a roof right now. It's like, well, you never know. We have different things going on, and different parts of the countries are able to help you out with X, Y, and Z. So let's make sure we at least get somebody out there. Worst case scenario, they look at your roof and it's too expensive, and you can hold off for a couple of years, and maybe they say you have a couple of years left. So there's little things like that we still are encouraging them to go through the whole process while still collecting that information. It's not just like you said, like you don't just want the secretary to take some information, write it down on a Post-it note and send it over to somebody. Like it should be more of a process that is encouraging them to continue through the process and get at the end of the day what is the best choice for them at the end of the day.
Okay, I don't even know why this didn't hit my radar, but if you were going to talk to a company and they're growing, at which economic scale, how many would you say a BPO service would be ideal for them to start looking at?
Yeah, a lot of it depends on a couple more details, I guess, from there. But we always say for us, like our minimum campaign is going to be about $250,000 a year that you're paying us for call center agents to, do something for you, whether that's an appointment, whether that's finalizing a sale, whether that's a warm transfer. That's like the bare minimum. And there's obviously other centers out there that will do things a little differently and that will start on a smaller scale. Maybe you only need one person. There's obviously plenty of BPOs that can do that. But for us, we're looking for someone that we can scale with. So you've started something, you're really good at what you're doing, but you don't want to be a call center company. Let us do the call center portion. You stick with what you're great at, whether that's roofing or whatever, home service or insurance. We take over the call center portion. Again, that feedback loop is consistent. We're able to see reporting. We're able to make sure you're successful, we're successful, and now let's grow.
That actually isn't that much when you come to think about it. So you think about 250,000, and this is just for my listeners. For my campaigns, we have about 10 to 15% ad ratio that we're willing to spend back into marketing.
Yeah.
So basically, for every $100,000 we generate internally, we're willing to spend up to $15,000 back to originate that lead. And that's a mix of ad spend and different cogs like call center.
Yeah.
So if you start, even if you allocate 10%, that's really just talking about 2.5 million in top line revenue, which is nothing.
Right.
So if you have a retail business and you're doing lead generation, so basically if you're doing 2.5 million in retail sales to 5 million, you should start looking at a BPO service to help scale and grow. And more importantly, just have the cadence and the lead nurturing processes established.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. So, and anything we can help with along the way, whether that be technology, whether that be establishing KPIs, whether that be even, other lead sources, if you're looking to gather more lead sources, other buyers, if you're looking to add a buyer in a different maybe area or the country, anything we can do to help with. The nice thing is, we know a lot of people in the space. And so we're able to make a lot of introductions to our current clients and to new clients and say, we just want you to grow, so if we can help in that in any way, talk to Ed Payne because he's got X, Y, and Z. So go over there and chat with him. And if he can help you grow, we're going to grow. So, it's definitely a win-win at the end of the day.
Awesome. So you brought up something else, obviously lead gen is a different topic for we have a lot of people here that can speak on that. But you brought up technology stack. Can you talk about how, I know we've had some talks personally around it, talk about how dialers and systems and recommendations and a piggyback question on that is how has AI, because AI is a big hot buzzword right now.
Yeah.
How has it impacted the BPO game?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of AI agents that are out there, and we definitely stay away from the outbound AI just because there's a lot of regulation that's coming down around that, and it's usually not what the consumer is looking for, in our opinion. But there is definitely some use cases for the agents who are just taking a quick inbound call. And we usually consider that more customer service side, which would be kind of outside the realm that we're in for the most part. But the other side of it is we internally we consider ourselves software agnostic. We want to use whatever's the most efficient for our clients. If we're, kind of pigeonholed into one thing, then, sometimes they're missing out on opportunities. So currently we use about 5 or 6 different dialers. We've used another 10 or so over the years that, maybe we've done some tests, then it hasn't worked out. So we just kind of have gone our own ways. But we actually have a questionnaire that we do with every client before they jump on. And if they're asking for our technology help, we say, fill out these. There's about 16 questions on there, I think it is. And it's simple, one-line answers. But how many leads are you generating per day? How many leads are you generating per week and per month? And then what's the intent of those leads? And then a couple other things that are a little bit more specific to their business. And then from there, our tech team, we have an onboarding call and we say, here's what we suggest. This dialer because of X, Y, and Z. This other platform for reporting, whether that be Ringba or one of the other tracking platforms. And then from there, let's make sure we're all dialed in. We're all in agreement on what those the technology piece is. We can handle it for you. Or if you have one that's all set up for the bigger brands, we'll plug right into what you have and just make sure, we want to have access so we can see all the reporting and again, have that loop of feedback so that we're all working off the same numbers. And then from there, some people are super hands-on in tech and they are very tech savvy and they want to have a say in it. And we have other clients who are like, dude, I'm a roofer. I don't care about the tech. I just want to see the bottom line, which is totally cool too. We will take care of all the technology needs and then, make sure you have visibility to see everything that you need to see. And then at the end of the day, let's share those numbers and make sure we're all growing at the same time.
I love that. So you're very boutique.
For sure.
So whether you come with the dialer that you're like my aunt created it and I'm gonna die on the vine with it.
Absolutely.
Or whether you're agnostic and you're like, hey, I don't care, just pick a technology
Yeah.
stack.
And we recently actually had a home services company we're working with, and they're kind of like, hey, we've looked into some technology in the past, and we've landed on this one. We are slowly growing with them, but we're like, hey, you could probably grow even faster if you use a different technology. We're not getting like paid for it, but if you want, we could just at least show you some things. And now we've shown them, and they're like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. We could dial much more efficiently. We could seal a little bit more and have more visibility. And now we're in the process of switching, and saying, hey, because you'll be more efficient, you'll get more leads, you'll make more money, we can grow both of us together, and whatever we can do to help that cause, we're all here for it.
Love it. So I guess you guys have grown a lot over the last handful of years, and obviously we just came from a panel where you have a couple thousand agents and across multiple different things, like taking payments to customer service, to outbound, to lead nurturing, to like you even talked about abandoned cart for like e-com and whatnot. So I love the fact that you guys have diversified so much. But what has been some of the biggest pain points that you've had in growing and scaling as quick as you guys have? Yeah,
it's something that my CEO was touching on a little bit in the panel, is that there's always the new hot vertical out there that can be good and bad. Everyone rushes to, let's say, Medicare, and then like he had mentioned, pivoted to ACA. When CMS crackdowns came, and it was just getting more and more saturated, so it was easier to go to something else. And we might grow, with our clients who are doing that pivot and are taking advantage of that. But then when that fizzles out and the next thing comes, it's not exactly easy to just be like, hey, let's take these 100 agents and move them from this vertical to that vertical. And so because of that, we try to stay away from going all in on one vertical or even all in on one client. Like, we want to make sure we don't have any more than 15% of one client that takes up 50% of our business. And the nice thing is we're able to scale that way with a bunch of different type of clients and a bunch of different verticals. We're able to see the industry as a whole and kind of look at it on the macro level and say, where are different things that we're good at and that we can help at more than maybe others, and let's go into that. Let's see who we're not working with in certain verticals. So that's definitely been a pain point, in that sometimes you're able to scale up with the client and they're adding agents like crazy. And then when certain things happen in the industry, which is outside of their control or our control, we got to scale down. And that's, something we try to stay away from, as far as the new hot topic that's going to turn off in 6 months. But at the same time, we also want to be there for our clients if that's something that they're doing that they're super successful in. So there's no like easy, perfect way to do it. But I think balancing, all of that is something we've gotten more used to over the years.
And to dumb it down, like for what I hear that is like most entrepreneurs have, is shiny object syndrome.
For
right?
sure.
Chasing too many shiny objects.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask you a lead gen question, because you deal with so many different lead types. In the construction space, it's hard, especially with the scope of work or limited zips or whatnot, to have leads. Is there a type of lead that you've seen, whether it's data or inbound or transfers, or can you kind of help me like a balanced portfolio of what you see that's working for some of the more successful roofing companies or construction companies in the space?
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones that we're working with have more of a brand name out there. And so the best that we would always, kind of suggest is an owned and operated site. If you have, if you're a sizable company, you have a marketing budget, you have a marketing team, have your owned and operated site where you can get a form filled out, or you also have a phone number on there. So either way, the customer who's looking for your service can say, here's what I need. I go to the website. It's very easy. I either fill out the form and they'll call me, or I see the phone number at the bottom. I'm just going to call them. And then from there, we take it. We, again, either continuously qualify it so that it is more of a laydown for that guy who's going into the house to sell him whatever it is. That is definitely the one we've seen the most, where it is in your control. You can kind of control the whole thing, where you have our BPO that is external, but we're part of your company. We're calling on your behalf, and we only want the best for your team so that we can grow together. And so as long as you're not buying too much external, obviously there is plenty of external, because a lot of our clients say, hey, I generate a ton, but I want more. So I buy some, I buy additional outside of what I'm doing internally. And that's great too. And it's just a matter of having the right partners.
Yeah,
so
we have to do the same.
Yeah, of course. So as long as you have a partner you can trust, who's doing the right things, and they know their lead generation, compliance and all that, then absolutely buy additional leads outside of what you're doing internally and test like crazy, and that's where that reporting comes back to, is this lead source was, converting at X percentage. This lead source was a little bit lower. Let's turn turn them off, let's turn them up, So those are definitely things we would recommend like crazy.
I love the fact you said test, because we have a budget allocated that we spend that we're willing to just test.
For sure.
No expectations. Hopefully it works. We obviously want things to work.
Right.
We actually have set aside budget to test new campaigns, like R&D initiatives almost.
Definitely.
Just to make sure we don't live and die by every lead.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So this is running out of time, but thank you for it. Shameless plug. How do people find you? Socials. We'll obviously put your backlinks on the bottom of the podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Travis Currier on LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me. Thecallgurus.com is super easy. I mean, you can go there, you can kind of fill out a form and I'll shoot you a call, or, you can see a little bit more about us on there and different verticals we serve. But basically anyone that needs sales, either it's lead generation or an end sale over the phone, we want to talk to you. And as long as there's scale opportunity and, there's trust there, let's do it together. Let's, even if it's a newer thing to you, or if you're established and you're looking for something different, we definitely want to scale with our clients. And you can always hit us up on LinkedIn or go into thecallgurus.com.
And one last shameless plug. What's the highest Inc. that you guys were ranked on fastest growing companies in the US? And then have you hit it every year?
Yes, I think we're on year 5 in a row right now. And I believe our highest was 132 on the Inc. 5000. So
wow.
132nd fastest growing company in the US.
Privately held companies in the US.
Yeah, I know you guys, I think, beat us on there a couple times. So we got room to improve.
Yeah. Well, the one-to-one kind of crippled us for a little bit, but we're rebounding.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thank you for your time, Travis.
Of course. Thanks for having me. You bet.
Are you stuck in that $3 to $10 million year-over-year revenue? Roofs in a Box is your all-in-one growth partner for modern construction companies. They combine AI, virtual staffing, and CRM solutions to help streamline operations. Replace your high fixed overhead with cost-effective systems and support. They empower you to run a smarter, leaner business, freeing up capital where it matters most. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next Roofs in a Box purchase. This episode of Pain Points is brought to you by Ringba. If your business relies on phone calls, you need to be working with them. Their technology will help you get the most money out of your marketing campaigns. Their call exchange, Ringba X, can deliver inbounds on demand to help grow your customer base. Now, I want to be transparent. Ringba and Adam did pay me to deliver that message, but I'm also a customer, and I've watched them help dozens of companies become more successful over the years. So if you sell a product or service over the phone, I guarantee a moment with their team will be worth it.